And the big thing is trauma is very unique the way it responds in the system.
Mm-hmm.
And so people that are treating trauma don't do anything with the body. It's all basically in the mind and the brain, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so unless something gets connected to that, they're not going to think about what's happening with the body. So you can see where the disparities coming in is you've got really brilliant people working in one area and not connecting up with the other area. It's a communication problem, and the body is a major connector. So it knows what it's looking for, it just can't communicate it. So it's sort of trying to yell at you, oh, here's the problem here. It looks like this is the symptom of the problem. So when people come into me and they say, oh, I have anxiety or I have post-traumatic stress, I say to them, that's a symptom.
Well, hello. Today on the Intentional Leadership Podcast, we have Dr. Don Wood. He's the founder of the Inspired Performance Institute. Don created and developed the TIP method, which we'll talk about here shortly. And now he's doing some groundbreaking work with DNA. If you want to reboot your mind, overcome depression, anxiety, addiction, PTSD, you want to look to improve your entire workforce, your own work, or you want to unlock higher performance, you need to listen today to what Don has to say. And you also need to go visit him and see the magic that he can do. Welcome, Don.
Thanks, Graham. I appreciate it. What a great intro. Thank you. I love it.
Well, it's for a great guy. You do an amazing thing, and the world needs to hear about it. So it's great.
Yeah. Now, we're very excited about what's going on and the things we're accomplishing. So it's very rewarding.
Right. So tell us about how you got started, what you're doing, and we'll go from there.
It was a very unique approach, not traditional. I didn't get into this necessarily to become a doctor. I got into this to really save my daughter's life. She was diagnosed with Crohn's at age 14. And at that time, we had no idea what Crohn's was all about. And they told us there's no cure for it. And people, they don't even know what causes it. So they said, she's just going to have to manage this for the rest of her life. And they ended up taking out 24 inches of her intestines through 4 different operations. And they said she'll eventually end up with nothing and she'll have to have a colostomy bag. And she's a young girl. And it was just like, so I started to, we started to do some research. The only thing we could come up with is take her off of gluten, take her off of dairy, change her diet, right? But none of that was working. And then she ended up years later being rushed to the hospital because she started coughing up blood. And they diagnosed her with another autoimmune disorder called idiopathic pulmonary hemosiderosis, which is where there's an iron buildup in the blood. So then the immune system dumps the blood to dump the iron into the lungs. And so that's a potential death sentence. And so only 1 in 1.2 million people even got it. So it was very rare. So there's no research behind it. And again, they said, no cure for it. We don't even know what causes it. Their advice was live close to a hospital because her lungs could fill up in 15 minutes and she'll choke to death. So that's when my wife said to me, she goes, I was adopted. So she says, this must be your fault. This must be a genetic thing. You need to figure this out or we're going to lose our daughter. So I went back to school and got my PhD and started to do the research and came up with the program TIP out of it, because at the time, as I was doing the research, kept meeting all these people with autoimmune disorders, but there was a common link. All of them had trauma. But it was like, our daughter didn't have trauma, not that we were aware of. And so sat her down and said, what is it we don't know? And then she disclosed to us that she had had abuse when she was 6 that we didn't know about. So that unresolved trauma, Graham, creates inflammation. And this is the response to trauma, whether it's physical or emotional. So that the genes that regulate inflammation upregulate, the genes that regulate the immune system downregulate. And the reason it does that is it's basically a protection system. We need to be focused on survival. So inflammation is a cell danger response. The cells become inflamed and hardened to protect the system from anything penetrating those cells. And it will go to the weakest genetic link in the body. So for her, it was her intestinal tract. So that's where she got her inflammation. But that's not supposed to be a bad thing. It's supposed to protect her until the danger's over. But trauma keeps running. And so subconsciously, your mind has not resolved this trauma. So it keeps the inflammation high, which then means the genes regulating the immune system are low. So now you've got this gap between immunity and inflammation. You can drive a truck full of disease into there because the immune system's not strong enough to handle it. And then it also affects neuroplasticity, neurotransmitters. So the whole system is supposed to go into a temporary pause until you escape the lion, because it thinks trauma is still active. And so as far as your mind's concerned, you're being chased by a lion consistently.
Wow. So you're in this cycle and your body's fighting. It's supposed to fight, stop, fight, stop. Just like anything else in life, you need to, take a break, and it doesn't. And I mean, the intestines seem like a great spot. Another one would be, recently the spleen. They probably, there's probably a certain, places in the body that it will attack first. Is that the case or not?
Yeah, because and there's where I think the epigenetics comes in. So it could be the genetic side. So that's the weakest genetic link. So it's set. So literally, think of it as the U.S. military, right? We're going to send more troops, right, to the area that's most vulnerable. So it goes to that area to protect it. And so now you've got all these troops going to that area to protect it. So the inflammation is basically pausing the immune system until the attack is over. So it's almost going into defense mode. So, okay, let's cover up, let's shelter this. And then when the danger's over, we'll let the immune system come in and clean up. But trauma keeps running, so it stays in that cell danger response. And then the only thing they were doing for my daughter is anti-anxiety meds, antidepressants, steroids, and painkillers. She was on all of them, boatloads of it.
I love modern medicine. I mean, we need it. It's done a great thing. But at some point, it's, let's throw another piece, let's throw some other thing. Oh, I'm not sleeping. Let's add Lunesta to the trazodone that will add to the whatever. And and it's just this constant buildup rather than, hey, let's stop. Let's figure out, okay, the body's supposed to self-regulate. You've just said that and shared that. It's supposed to turn off and on. Why isn't it? Let's figure out what it is that is actually not allowing it to go off and on. And then we can address it. And maybe you do need something like whatever, steroid or something. But
on a temporary basis, that's fine.
Right. Yeah.
Because if she didn't have the steroids, the inflammation wouldn't have come down. She'd never get food through. So they had to bring the inflammation down with the steroids. But the problem is they had to keep using them, and that's not good.
Right.
Because then that's going to create all kinds of other issues. So the issue is that they were treating her Crohn's, not knowing that the problem wasn't the Crohn's. The Crohn's was the symptom of the problem. So the problem is that the people who were treating her Crohn's were trained in gastroenterology. And so they would never have connected it up to the trauma. They don't get any psychological training. Or if they did, it was, a couple of classes, right? So that's the problem with our system, is everything is siloed.
Right.
So you go because of the symptom that you've got, you go to your heart doctor, or cardiologist, because you're dealing with a heart issue, right? So he's going to deal with what he's been trained on to deal with the heart. But he may not have connected it up to something else.
Right.
And so they don't get very much nutritional training. So there's multiple factors. And I can see, so I'm not being critical, of the people treating my daughter. They cared and they wanted to help her and they were doing what they were trained to do. But nobody would have connected it up to her trauma. But that was the advantage for me, is I came into this with a real mission. And so I started to look at multiple areas and started making connections. And the obvious connection was trauma. What is trauma doing to the system? How is the brain responding to trauma? And then I was able to figure out that if I can calm all of that down, I can actually heal it.
Uh, so an outside perspective, and like you say, they're great doctors. They care. They're smart.
Yep.
They're doing their job. They are doing what they know, but they're only able to see so much. It's
Yep.
you step back and you get too close to a mountain, you don't see it, and you step back and you can see the whole thing.
Yep. And
And
that's really what it is. Like I said, they're caring people. They're trying their best, and they know a lot about Crohn's. They know what's happening. They know and so they know how to treat that. And their treatment was steroids to bring it down, but then the cells would die. So when the cells go into a cell danger response, they become hardened and inflamed. That's to prevent anything from penetrating the cell while it's under attack. So nothing gets in, but nothing gets out.
okay.
So it stops circulating. So now you've got a toxic cell building up. And then eventually that cell's going to die from the toxicity. So then they would go in and say, well, those cells died. Let's cut those pieces out, right? And reattach it. And then that's why they said eventually you're going to end up with no tubing because we've cut it all out. And so then we're going to have to attach a colostomy bag in order to excrete any of the waste.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that, the solution is let's just keep cutting rather than let's go find something else. Let's let's go put a piece of plastic pipe in you and cut out the natural stuff. And it blows my mind that today, with all the information we have, that's still kind of the prevalent solution to some of these things.
And the big thing is trauma is very unique the way it responds in the system. And so people that are treating trauma don't do anything with the body. It's all basically in the mind, in the brain, right? And so unless something gets connected to that, they're not going to think about what's happening with the body. So you can see where the disparities coming in is you've got really brilliant people working in one area and not connecting up with the other area. It's a communication problem, and the body is a major connector. So it knows what it's looking for. It just can't communicate it. So it's sort of trying to yell at you, well, here's the problem here. It looks like this is the symptom of the problem. So when people come into me and they say, I have anxiety or I have post-traumatic stress, I say to them, that's a symptom.
Right.
Your mind doesn't get anxious for no reason. It's going to become anxious because it's trying to warn you about something. It's going to go into depression because you didn't solve the problem it's been asking you to solve. So depression is the absence of emotions. So you shut down because your mind has been trying to get you either angry or fearful to get into some sort of an action. So what I always talk about is think of emotions, feelings, and sensations as calls for actions. What's the purpose of fear? Run. What's the purpose of anger? Attack. So if you think about something that happened to you 10 years ago and your heart starts pounding in your chest, that's a glitch. Why would your mind be trying to get you to run now about something that happened 10 years ago? It's reviewing the data, the memory in real time, because your survival brain operates in the present. So everything for the subconscious mind, the survival brain, is about now. This is the glitch. It keeps looking at old data in real time and then keeps activating the nervous system. So my daughter's nervous system kept turning on, which then said, inflammation high, right? Immunity low until we escape. But she was trying to escape something from her age of 6. And she couldn't escape it because you can't escape it. It's over.
Right.
It's the memory. And that's what I figured out. If I can get to the root of it all, which is the way we store the memory about this trauma, we can fix it. And that's what I did.
That's brilliant. Yeah. And you call it a glitch, and, high performers would call it muscle memory.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to go make that 2-foot putt because I just did it 3,000 times in the last week. Or I'm going to hit the baseball 100 miles an hour and it's going to go 468. That's muscle memory, and that's a positive use.
And I actually call that coding. Okay. So our brain is coding. So I worked with a professional baseball player, 6-time All-Star, very well known. And when he first sat down with me, I said, "Did you know that you can't think and hit a baseball?" He goes, "Why can't I think and hit a baseball?" I said, "It's too fast." I think it was Harvard or Stanford or UCLA. One of them did a study that actually said it's physically impossible for a Major League Baseball player to hit a Major League fastball. So the pitcher's 60 feet, 6 inches away. He's throwing a ball at 95 miles an hour. That ball is going to reach the plate in about 350 milliseconds, right? Millionths of a second. It takes 400 milliseconds to process it through the logical, conscious thinking part of our brain. So how are they hitting it? What I say is it's coding. So the person I was talking to, his father was a Major League Baseball player as well. And I said, "You've been around baseball your entire life. You have seen thousands of pitches come in from that height, with that speed, with that spin. Your mind has built a pattern that when I see that, the ball's going to end up generally in this area, right? Within a few inches, right? I need to get the bat in there." That's not thinking. That's responding. So we're responding to the stimuli that's coming in, not from the thinking process, but from the memory process. But we think we're thinking. And so, but it comes back to the way we've stored so many codes about seeing that before. So that, and I give the example of Michael Jordan, greatest basketball player, tries to make it into Major League Baseball, can't make it. He's a better athlete than probably 99% of the athletes playing. Why can't he make it? He didn't have enough codes. And the pitchers that he's up against, right, have been doing this for so much longer, right? They've got things that he hasn't seen before, right? So he can go play in the minor leagues and hit, 250 because of his athletic ability, but he's not going to be able to get to the major league level when he meets the major league ball players, right, that have things that he's just never experienced. And so I use this with golf as well. So when I work with athletes, so I give a funny example. I was playing with one of the golfers, and we're out, and you play with these guys, they're insane how good they are. I mean, they're just amazing how good they are. So I'm getting ready to putt, and just as I'm getting ready to putt, he says to me, he goes, "Doc, tell me what you're thinking right now." And so I back off the putt, and I said, "Don't tell me you're thinking when you're putting." And he goes, "Why am I not supposed to think when I putt?" And I says, "You can't think and putt and make the putt." I said, "Your thinking takes place before the putt. So it's a 6-foot putt. It's uphill. It's into the grain. It's going to break probably 2 balls to the left. That's the thinking time. Then you stand over the ball, quiet your mind, and let your brain find the code. You've made that thousands of times. And so when you quiet your mind doesn't feel stress. Now it's going to say, "Oh, okay, this is the pace. This is the stroke." And I've done it so many times. So you take a guy like Brian Harman, wins the British Open, makes 47 of 47 putts inside 10 feet on that weekend. Just think about how amazing that is, right? His mind was in optimal condition, super relaxed, super focused, running on codes. It wasn't him thinking. Because if you think about it, what's the first thing that's going to happen? We're all golfers. So you're going to sit there and say, "Well, don't run it by, because now you got a downhill putt coming back and it's going to be really slippery." You're dead.
Right.
Because now you've put in stress. Your mind knows what to do all along.
Right. It's just like being in the zone. If you're in basketball and you all of a sudden you score 40 points and you forgot that you don't even know the game you were playing. You don't remember it. I know, it's
unconscious. We call it unconscious, right?
Right. Yeah. So let's go to kind of so your daughter was sick. You said, "I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to help heal her." And it's based on trauma. And then now you are helping others with trauma, depression, anxiety, and what else are you doing, and how are you doing that?
I'm also working in addiction. So, for example, if somebody comes in and says, "I have anxiety," what do we what's the traditional approach to it? Put you on anti-anxiety medication.
Right.
What I say is, why are you anxious? Right? What would your mind create anxiety for? I say, think of anxiety as an email coming into your inbox. And this email is basically, so what do you do with the email? You delete it, right? You may even put in antivirus software to stop the email from coming in the inbox. But the email is actually an email from your bank asking you to look at your account because there may be some suspicious activity. Now, they may be looking at activity from 10 years ago, but they're going to keep sending the email until you answer. It's fine. I don't need to deal with that. But that email is going to keep coming in. You're going to keep deleting it, ignoring it. It's not going away until you address what the email, what the message. So I say, think of anxiety as an email that you need to answer. And if you don't answer it, it's not going away. Now, you can block it, right, with medication, but that's not solving the problem. And, the same thing with depression. When people come in, they say, I have depression. I say, tell me what you're angry about. And they'll go, well, I'm depressed. I'm not angry. And I go, yeah, your mind has been trying to get you into some sort of an action. Chances are it's looking at something that happened years ago, and it's not okay with it. Why did I let that person bully me? Why didn't I stand up for myself? Why didn't I see that guy gonna rip me off? And so you don't solve the problem because you can't solve the problem. It doesn't exist. So your mind is using an emotion like anger to get you into an action to try to do something about something that doesn't exist. So if you don't answer the call because you can't answer the call, it's impossible to do. How does your mind protect you? It stops calling for the anger, stops calling for the action. Depression is the absence of emotions. You go flat. So we just need to find out what was the call and resolve it.
And so the trauma, the depression, the anxiety, it feels, are we talking about it more often now? And that's why it's more, quote, prevalent, and it was prevalent before, because, 20 years ago, nobody talked about it, or there weren't that many people that you knew were on some sort of anti-anxiety. What's causing it now versus 20 years ago?
I think it was there, but they just didn't talk about it. You didn't. Okay. You're not going to go into your HR department if you're the CEO and tell them I have, depression, or I have, post-traumatic stress, because you're going to probably be fired.
Right.
And so there was a stigma about all of these things, and the stigma still exists. So even with addiction, we're getting a lot of success with addiction by changing the way we approach it. So when people come into me and they say, I'm addicted to whatever, I say, well, addiction is a symptom of a problem. So where's the pain coming from? Is this emotional pain or physical pain? So your subconscious is survival-based, operates in the present all the time. So when does it want the pain to stop? Now. Because it operates in the present, it has no connection to time. Can it see a consequence to an action? No. This solved the problem. When did it solve the problem? Now. And so now, every time I take a drink of this and the pain stops, I'm coding this. This is the solution to my problem. And it works. And it shuts the pain off temporarily. But then it wears off, comes back. I need another drink. I need another drug, whatever it is. So let's find out what created the pain and what the solution that you found to stop the pain was solving. And so addiction is not about character, morals, ethics, or willpower. It's about pain. So we take the shame out of it right away.
Yeah, no, and that's, so you identify the pain, and then you have to break the code somehow too, because you have two codes, right?
Yeah, memory and coding.
Memory and coding. And so you have this, okay, I'm in pain, trauma, whatever this, so I'm addicted to alcohol. Well, because that's solving. So you have to break both with that pain piece and then that, okay, my response to having that drink. Or if you solve the one, does the other one go automatically with it?
It usually does, but we want to work on it to make sure. So what we'll do is we'll say, what created the pain? What's the trauma that created the pain? That could have come from childhood, could have come from all kinds of different things.
Sure.
That is running in the background in high definition, which keeps activating the nervous system. I never liked the word trigger. I said, trigger sounds negative and violent. Our minds aren't negative and violent. They're protecting us.
Right.
So what is it protecting us from? Is this constant reminder that I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, or you got physically attacked, or you got personally attacked, and your mind's not okay with it, and it wants a resolution to it. So once we work on the memory and take it out of high definition into low definition, how I do that, for example, this is a way to explain it. If I asked you, Graham, what you ate for dinner last night, can you tell me what you ate for dinner?
Yeah.
What'd you have?
I had chicken pot pie.
Chicken pot pie. Okay. When I asked you that, you saw pictures, right, of what you ate, maybe where you ate it.
How I made it. Yeah.
Yep. That's how you stored the information about dinner last night. Now, dinner last night wasn't threatening or disturbing, so it's stored as a fairly low resolution file.
I don't know. It kind of brought back sick memories of a child and having those things in the microwave, but
There you go. So maybe that is a trauma we need to work on. But the problem is that if it was a traumatic event, right, all your senses are heightened: sight, smell, hearing. So it records trauma very differently, very intense, with a lot of detail. And that's what keeps activating the nervous system. The mind looks at memory, sees it in real time, turns on the system to get you into an action, but there's no action possible. But that's all happening below your conscious awareness. You just experience the emotion. And so what we do is we take it out of high def into low def, like to what you ate for dinner last night. That's what the whole program's about. Then you can talk about that traumatic event without it activating your nervous system. Then we want to work on the codes that got built up on how we used to respond when we thought about that. But it's a lot easier to change those codes when you don't have the trauma keep activating the system. So we take you through, 30 to 60 days of audios to start recoding.
Okay. So there is you don't just show up to your office and you're magically all cured. You walk away with you're better. And now we need to make sure that muscle memory, the coding, is repeated over 60 days so that way it sticks.
Yeah. So a lot of people, that's our biggest problem, is that they feel so good after they leave because we did resolve that trauma is not activating the nervous system. And then they're like, well, I'm sort of good. I guess I don't need to do the rest. Right. So they're going to get relief no matter what. Right. But it's going to become a lot stronger if it's continued to be reinforced.
Right.
So that's why we want to keep people on the audios, because the audios are reinforcing what they experienced.
So you need to do your homework after you leave. Yeah. That makes sense.
So it's almost like, if you came into a rehab center, right, and they fixed your knee and they said, okay, we're going to operate, we're going to, put in new ligaments, we're going to do all this different stuff, right? Over the next, month, I want you going to rehab and strengthening it.
Right.
You're not going to run a marathon right off the bat. You're going to have to strengthen it up a little bit. Now, if you never strengthened it up, would it heal on its own? Yes. But it may not be as good if you didn't strengthen it as you went along.
Okay. Question that I thought of a second ago is that, okay, you're talking about the mind, the body, the trauma, all of these things, but you also mentioned physical pain. Are you able to extract those and decode those, or are you working with, somebody else in conjunction with, say, a Steve Ozanich type, where they're more focused on the physical side? Or, how does that work?
Well, I think 80% is psychological. So if the pain is coming from psychological, that's going to go away.
Okay.
If it's coming from physical, then you may need to do something else, right? to enhance it. But it's going to be a lot easier to fix the physical pain if the mind is feeling at ease.
For sure.
And so then the healing process, because the mind doesn't want to do maintenance if it's in a threat mode. And that's why we see people getting sicker and sicker, because their mind is saying we're in danger, right? We'll do maintenance when we escape. And so I have people come in, they say, I don't understand this. I eat right, I exercise, I do everything, I think it should be in great health, and yet I'm still dealing with this, and this. Well, then it's psychological, which I believe 80% are. So I had a young man come in. They called me and said he was in an accident on his moped. He got hit by a truck 8 months earlier, and said he's in extreme pain. And we're giving him, like they said, every month he keeps saying that it's worse and worse and worse. He's not getting better. And so they eventually said he's addicted to the drugs. Now, we don't think he's in pain because of all the drugs he's taking. I talked to the doctor who said it's impossible. He can't feel pain. I put in nerve blockers. We're giving him end of life, like stage 4 cancer patient, pain medication. But he still keeps talking about this pain. So his mother and father brought him down. I take a look. We do a quick AO scan.
Okay, yeah.
Which sort of looks at, the different biomarkers. And I said to him, you're in pain. He goes, you believe me? I said, yeah, I believe you. I said, you're feeling the pain. And I said, tell me what happened. So he said, I don't remember the accident. He says, but because it was on a corner, they had all the different camera angles. I sat for months looking at all the camera angles, trying to figure out how could have I avoided this. What he was doing was engraving the trauma.
Right.
So he had such great, vivid data that he was looking at that I talked to the doctor and I said, this isn't an addiction issue. This is a trauma issue. And so what I said to him is, I said, I don't know if you've ever seen this before. I said, I believe that his mind was in such fear. He created so much fear about this accident because he saw it from every angle. Most people don't get, even if you're in an accident, you don't get that kind of detail.
Right.
He had so much detail that his mind was overriding your pain medication to keep him in an action to solve the problem. His mind was trying to avoid the accident.
Right.
And so if he lets the pain medication do its job, he's not going to stay in the action call. That's the power of our mind. He overrode it. And so he's off of everything now.
And did that doctor come back to you and say, I believe you? Or does he still have doubts?
Yeah, he actually did. He said, I've never seen that. Like, he goes, that actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So
that's how powerful our mind is.
Yeah. How do you get doctors? Because we agree they care. They wouldn't be a doctor if they didn't, for the most part.
Yep.
How do you get them to look outside of the box, or have that, for instance, that doctor, oftentimes if you went to him, I hate to say it, but one of mine would have said, oh, it's just hocus pocus. It's a malarkey. I don't believe you. And
some will. But the real science...
How do you get the word out?
That's what we're trying to do. That's why we're here. The word out. Because what I hear all the time is when people understand what I'm doing, I get this back all the time. This makes so much sense now. That's why I spend 2 hours on just science and education. Because once people understand that there's nothing wrong with them, there's nothing wrong with their mind, then the healing process can start. We've got to get that, I'm broken, I'm defeated, something's wrong with me. I need an outside influence to fix me. No, all your healing is done from the inside. You actually have the ability to heal yourself, but your mind and your brain doesn't want to start the healing process until it's safe.
Okay. So I feel great. I'm awesome. I love myself. I love my life. I don't feel, I don't drink. I work out. All life is good. Kumbaya. And you say, okay, then I'm going to improve your life anyway. You're going to make the putt. You're going to win the country club members tournament. And that's the tip program. Is that right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So we go from, okay, if we have anxiety, addiction, all of that, and we're recoding and identifying, and then is it the same process just to also be a high performer?
Yeah. Yeah. So there's events and experiences that a lot of people will say, oh, I haven't really had any trauma, but there are things that will still affect our performance.
Mm-hmm.
And so it actually affects the mitochondria in the cells. So when we have this unresolved trauma, we have less energy. So it's very common when I work with people for them to see improved physical performance as well. Marco Cicchetto, he's a double amputee marathon runner, breaks the world record literally within a month of going through our program. Then breaks his own world record, gets signed by Nike, and all kinds of examples of that. Some of the people from the Genius Network, Daryl Sutherland talked about his daughter went through the program and then started realizing she was making personal bests in swimming.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the only thing she had done in between the two. And so, and then she didn't have the big T kind of trauma stuff. But once we calm the nervous system down, then the system starts to operate at its highest level. So we're looking for peak performance. So you take a really world-class athlete and you give them that little edge. That's the difference between fifth and first.
For sure. Yeah. It doesn't take much when you're at that level.
No.
That's why they do drugs because there's no other way.
Edge.
There's no other way to get that 0.5% edge.
No.
So you go in and you say, okay, I want to improve on my golf game, my swimming, and it's the exact same protocol then?
Yep. I give you the science and education, how the brain works, why it does what it does. And then I say, is there anything that would be interfering with your brain operating at its highest performance level?
Okay.
And so then we say, and they'll say, well, I remember, I was competing in a tournament and, on the 18th hole, I 3-putted, lost the tournament, right? But, that was 5 years ago. Yeah, but it still shows up.
Right.
So I had one guy, professionally talk to me. He said, there's one hole on this particular course. It's a par 3. There's water all surrounding it. And he goes, I put it in the water every single time. He's too good to do that.
Right.
What's his mind doing? It's banked that memory of putting the ball in the water. So when he stands up on the tee box, what is his mind going to say? What do we know about this hole? And it's got all kinds of evidence about putting the ball in the water. He puts the ball in the water because his mind is using the codes that he built about this hole. He's maybe played that hole maybe, 12 times, right? Over the course of his career, but he has a lot of evidence of putting the ball on the water or missing the green. And so he's got the skill to put it right on the green, but now his mind is reviewing what it knows about this hole. You got to clear that out.
Right.
Because if you don't clear it out, that becomes the dominant thought.
Oh, yeah. I have a par 3 that that's exactly what I do to it. And it's
so what I do is I get your mind to calm down. So that's why I said to the guy putting, I said, you want to quiet your mind. There's where people start, I got to think about it. No, you don't want to think. You want to quiet your mind, let your mind, it knows what to do. It will find it, but not if it's starting to look at that threats that this hole has accumulated.
And I think that that's one of the things I learned early on as an athlete is every time I thought about something, I stunk it up.
Because that part of the brain is not the success part of your brain.
Yeah. When I was just doing, then it was a great time. But if I started to think, then it got ugly. And so, it's a fine line because you want to be able to, be reactionary, I guess, to a certain event that is happening in front of you. Because golf, you have a little more time. Golf, you can really ruminate.
Oh, you can, you can really mess yourself up with golf.
But, hockey, you're a hockey guy. That's quick, move. And you really have, if you're thinking there, you're going to get pummeled.
Oh, yeah. You're just reacting. You're responding to your environment in real time,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the more you think, you can have a plan, but the plan's probably going to get shot real quick because you can't control the other 9 players.
Right.
So the key in that sport is to be able to respond at the same time as keeping your mind, very calm and relaxed. So a guy like Gretzky, right, the greatest hockey player of all time, if you have your mind operating in that capacity, he can process more information. So he can now process the other 9 guys on the ice faster than everybody else. And his famous line is, don't go to where the puck is, go to where the puck's going to go. Right? So he could calculate. So that's the coding process. He's seen that play happen so many times that 78% of the time the puck goes in this direction based on, so it's that fast. So his mind says, here's the other 9 players, here's the formation, here's where everybody is, here's the speed that they're at. Based on that, the puck in most cases has to move towards this direction. That's millionths of a second he's doing that. And if you're playing against Gretzky and you can process that in 350 milliseconds and he processes it in 200 milliseconds, he's already moved and he's 100 milliseconds ahead of you. That's what makes him so great.
Isn't that crazy? That's that's from above average to great. You're talking about a great athlete competing against him, or a good athlete competing against him, and he is taking it to a whole nother level, and it's just that millisecond.
It's that fast. And so you look at that in terms of what's that distance wise, that may be a stride.
Right.
But that stride in hockey is huge.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so he's already made the move. Now he's calculating that on average it's going to probably come here. Now, could end up, based on averages, go another direction. But he's using averages to his advantage to say, now that I know, and he doesn't consciously do that. Right. It's all unconscious. All of a sudden he moves in that direction. They go, oh, he's got great anticipation. Right? It was like, he's coded it all. Right? And so, I mean, that was the famous thing about Gretzky, because obviously I love hockey. What Gretzky was famous for is they couldn't stop him. So what they started to do was corral him. So they would cut off his passage to the net and forced him towards the corners. So what he did is he set up behind the net. So he went from the greatest goal scorer to the greatest assist leader, because now he realized they can't get me behind the net unless they commit to me, and then I'll go the other way. And if 2 guys commit to me, now I've got somebody open.
Right.
So that's what made him famous. They called it his office. His office was behind the net. And then he would set guys up and they'd score. I mean, it was so phenomenal. And just to study a brain like that, you'd realize how fast he was calculating, and he had a lot more codes.
Right.
So just like any computer, I mean, look at ChatGPT, how fast it is. It's pulling in, billions of bits of information. Our brain is capable of doing something similar to that. And then that calculation gives him the edge. And at that level, the only guy I've seen, I don't know if you watch much hockey now, but the only guy I've seen that is now, they're all so good, they're so fast, right? Conor McDavid, who plays for Edmonton, that guy is the next Gretzky. And I don't know if he'll ever get to that level, but if you watch that guy play, his ability and speed are beyond anything in the NHL. That guy is incredible. And his ability to see the play, know where the puck needs to go, he makes them look like kids. He's playing as a man against kids. That's what Gretzky did. I haven't seen that. Even the other greats, that they talk about, Ovechkin and all these other guys, they're not that level. He's a supreme level, like Gretzky was.
Yeah, and I think that that's similar to basketball. If you Jordan was a phenomenal athlete, but he also had that edge.
Yeah.
Larry Bird's not really that great of an athlete, but he had the edge.
He could see more and faster.
Yeah, he could see more. Joe Montana could see more faster in football. He wasn't the greatest athlete. He was not super strong, fast, but he could see more faster. And so that separates them. I think that might be, now that we're talking about it, it's probably why, to a certain degree, LeBron doesn't get what he deserves, is because he doesn't see more faster sometimes. I think he's kind of stuck in a little bit of the old coding, but he's such an incredible athlete that he gets away with it. Maybe I'm wrong. But,
no, I think you're right. I think he's got such supreme athletic ability. But I'm not sure. He's just physically big. I mean, he's bigger than Jordan ever was. So he can get away with a lot more. Jordan had to be much more calculating because Jordan wasn't that dominant. I mean, he's a big guy as the average person. But in the NBA, he wasn't a big guy. Gretzky was small.
Right.
By standards in the NHL. He didn't weigh more than 165 pounds. That's small for an NHL hockey player.
Yeah.
But he was so quick that they couldn't hit him. Like Joe Montana, right? Mm-hmm. His lateral movement is so quick because he can calculate, if I wait just that little split second and then I step up, they pass me.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. That ability is phenomenal. And when you play at the lower levels, you can see the really good athletes that can do that. But when they get to the level of NHL, NBA, and do it, wow, that is so impressive.
It's a whole nother level. It's just, and it's, I don't know if it's appropriate, but you look at the Tour de France and you blame, and everybody's mad, and me included at some point back in my life, of Lance Armstrong cheating.
Yeah.
Well, they all were. So if you took the drugs out of every one of them, he still would have won every one of those races.
But if he didn't use drugs, he wouldn't have won.
Right, because he needed those extra milliseconds every single day over 31 days, and that was it. And so let's get to some of the research you're doing. You're doing some incredible DNA research, some work that's it's going to change things. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so that's what my theory all along was, that unresolved trauma is increasing the gene, inflammation genes, and changing the immune system, neuroplasticity, neurotransmitters. So we just published our first DNA study showing that when we take people through the TIP program, we do a pre-DNA test and a post-DNA test. We're changing the inflammations coming down by up to 50%. And the immune system's coming up by as much as 40 to 100%. Exactly what I said would happen. And we're publishing that now. And then the same thing with neuroplasticity. So if the mind's in a stress mode with this trauma running all the time, the neuroplasticity, they used to say, as we get older, neuroplasticity just eventually, diminishes. That's not really true. Our brain's capable of learning all along. And so we're publishing a study of 45% increase in neuroplasticity just by going through the program. Even the telomeres, that age, are increasing. We had one lady, 58.6 years of age, chronologically. She took care of herself. She was eating right, exercising. So she was in the cosmetic business, so she looked amazing. She did not look 58. She looked like she was in her 40s. However, her DNA before showed her telomere length was at about 56. So she was doing some good work. She took almost 3 years off of her telomere age.
Right.
But had a lot of trauma. We resolved the trauma. Inflammation came down by about 50%. Her immune system came up by about 40 to 50%, but her telomere age went down to 47 years of age. Wow. Almost another 10 years.
Almost saved a decade from that. And so it's increasing the length of the telomeres. Is that what you're measuring?
The telomeres, yeah.
And how are you testing the DNA? Is it just a simple blood panel? What was that?
Just a blood panel. So we prick the finger, and then we have a circle on a card. They put the blood in there, and then we send it off to a lab, and then the lab gives us the pre-test. And then when they finish the whole program, We then do another blood test, send that in, and then they give us the comparison, and it's phenomenal.
Unreal.
And so that's world changing, showing that what's the biggest effect on us? Trauma.
Uh-huh. So you say when they finish the program, is that a day with Dawn? Is that a week with the Performance Institute? Is that 60 days after? And I know you have a new online program. What does finish the program look like? What does the program look like?
So what we were testing is if they came in one-on-one to see me.
Okay.
So they would meet with me, do a 1 day or 2 day, whatever they were in for. We'd do the DNA before I started.
Mm-hmm.
And then after they left, we would give them a DNA kit that when they were finished all the audios, then they would then retest and send that into the lab. And that's what we're seeing anywhere from about 30 to 60 days in between the treatment with me and then seeing the results, which is amazing how fast the system will recover.
Well, that how fast it is. And also it probably takes 30 days, even if they didn't listen to the audios, it probably takes 30 days for your body to go, what in the world just happened to this? I need to recalibrate. I mean, it's like getting off the couch and running a marathon, I would imagine. You just can't do it.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's our bodies are designed to heal. Our minds are designed to heal.
Yeah.
But as soon as we get the trauma out, the mind operates in the present, the subconscious mind.
Mm-hmm.
So because it operates in the present, it starts working on maintenance immediately. And so
after the 60 days, do people then come back to you? Do they go, is there a supplemental regimen? What does the process look like then?
not unless they have more trauma that could come up, but now we've got that 165-pound backpack of trauma off of them.
Yeah.
And so now it's a lot easier to handle another 10 pounds coming in, so they can deal with it a lot better.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you come, I've visited your facility. And I got to play in the theta machine. That's probably not the appropriate term, but that's what I look at.
No, it is a theta chamber. Yeah, we call it.
That was an amazing experience. And then the hyperbaric, the PMF mats, the light therapy, and you do your own program, and you're spending 4 hours approximately with the people.
Yeah, 4 to 5 hours with them, taking them through the whole process, including clearing the trauma.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't even start on the trauma for at least 2 hours.
Okay.
All of it is mostly science and education, because I'm a big believer in, if you understand, like, don't you always like going and the doctor says, well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do this step, this step, this step, because when we do this, this affects this, right? They generally don't do it. When you go in, you say, well, what are we going to do? Well, don't worry about it. We'll take care of it. We know what we're doing, right? They don't want to explain it. I want to explain it. Yeah. Because when you explain it, people go, well, that makes sense. Of course that would happen.
Right.
How could it not happen?
Yeah. And does it impact, I don't know why, I just thought, does it impact the mitochondria as well when you're doing this?
Oh, yeah. Definitely has a big impact on mitochondria.
Okay.
And people don't realize. So there's that extra gear that people have. That's why I said Marco Giacchetto ends up taking 15 seconds. In 9 days after going through our program, takes 15 seconds per mile. He's a marathon runner right after the program, and then breaks the world record in another few weeks, and then breaks his own world record a few weeks later and gets signed by Nike. And what I say to him, Graham, I always say to everybody, I'm not making you better. You are always capable of this. You just didn't have access to that power. These are highly tuned, highly trained athletes. They have that ability. They've trained themselves to get there. They're just compromising. They're fighting the wind of the trauma, which is then going to happen. But as soon as we free that up, it was interesting because we worked with an organization that works with top world athletes, training them. They were working on heart rate variability, pulse, all of those things. And they train them. So they're monitoring them constantly. When I talked about the mitochondria and what happens with trauma, the one guy who was the neuroscientist in the group, he stopped me and he goes, you're just blowing my mind. He says, we monitor these guys like constantly. We never understood why they would go into a sympathetic nervous system response at rest. He says, when they're just doing nothing, all of a sudden we would notice a spike in sympathetic nervous system. You're telling me that's the trauma loop that's running? I said, yeah. He goes, we never knew that. We just thought it was some anomaly.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, would it be that some of these marathoners, I mean, just thinking, would they have no trauma, and that's why some of them are running faster than others? Or is
Could
it?
be, or they've managed to handle it a lot better,
Yeah.
or they've got other
Okay.
conditions that have sort of, allowed them to,
Mm-hmm.
still respond. Like, why does one veteran get post-traumatic stress and another one doesn't, right? And they're in the same situation, same battle.
Right.
That came from earlier in their life where they maybe experienced more trauma, and then this is just an overwhelm of their system.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody else who
That's
didn't, they can cope with that one better.
right. That's one thing we didn't really touch on right away. Is the work you're doing with the veterans is phenomenal. When I visited and I got to hang out, I was a fly on the wall for a few days, and the stories they told me while we were sitting around, bring you to tears, bring you to. I mean, it humbles you like you could not believe. So I actually wanted to thank you for that, because these men and women that I had an opportunity to sit with, and so they were telling the stories of pre-dawn and post-dawn, and it was unreal how you were able to just really extract the emotion from that and work with them to make that PTSD go away, I guess.
What's really interesting is I was talking to somebody who says they're using THC,
Right.
on these veterans because it seems to be an effective way, right, to calm them down. And so I said, so why THC? And he goes, well, THC, calms the brain down, which allows them. I said, tell me what THC is doing. And he said, well, obviously it's working with the cannabinoid receptors, which then produces, the chill response. And I said, so why aren't the veterans producing their own endocannabinoids, like anandamide? Anandamide is an endocannabinoid that will chill you out. And I said, you're telling me that they don't produce it? And he goes, no, when they have post-traumatic stress, they don't seem to be producing these endocannabinoids. So I said, okay, do you know why? And he goes, well, no, but we do know that they don't produce them. And I said, so think about it this way. I said, their brain is still in battle.
Uh-huh.
Would your brain ever think to chill you out in the middle of a battle? It won't. The reason that they're not producing the endocannabinoids is not because they can't, but because their mind doesn't want to do that as long as they're in a threat. When we get the memory of that battle out of the way, they could produce their own endocannabinoids. They don't need to biohack their system, right? Let them get that out. And so your mind is not going to chill you out when you're in the middle of a fight. It just won't do it. It's not that it's not capable of it, but it won't do it because it's not safe to chill. You don't want your soldiers out there in the middle of a battle going, wow, I just feel so chill right now.
Look at the sunset.
Brain's not going to do it.
Wow, there's a lot of stars out here in the middle of nowhere.
Exactly.
Yeah, no.
It's focused on survival, so it's not going to chill them out. So now they're living in battle constantly.
Uh-huh.
And so that's why their system is not doing what we think it should do. And instead of understanding why it's not doing it, we medicate them.
Right. Wow.
So I'm going back to why. Why would, and when I'm asking why to this guy, he's basically saying, well, we don't know.
Uh-huh.
Right, you don't know. But guess what? I do know why it's not doing it. And so you don't need, so THC, if you look at the chemical structure of THC and the chemical structure of anandamide is our own natural chill molecule in our system. They're almost identical. So when the THC gets into the blood and hits the receptors in the brain releases serotonin, which is what anandamide would do. But it's not going to produce the anandamide, so they produce the THC that produces the same effect because they're almost identical.
That makes complete
Doesn't that make
sense.
so much sense?
Yeah. And it also makes sense if, the THC would demotivate a normal-ish type brain, or that's why, people would do that, kind of like, drinking alcohol or whatever. It just, the THC is
Numb
going to do that.
themselves.
Right. Yeah.
Close it down, which is what, when we're feeling good and we're feeling chill, what anandamide will do. So you're a runner, right? You run,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
right? So you're naturally producing anandamide.
Mm-hmm.
The runner's high when you feel like you got through and you feel really good after a run.
Yep.
That's your own endocannabinoids going, chill out now, man. You did it.
Yeah. It's fun. I probably shouldn't share this, but I will. So
Oh my gosh.
I was riding yesterday, and I was looking at Mount Baker on this beautiful flat stretch of road, and the water, the mountains, the bird, the bald eagles. It couldn't have been a better, late evening bicycle ride, except I took my eye off what I was doing because I was looking at all these things, and I hit a pothole.
Oh my
that
God.
I know is there because I ride this road all the time. And so I'm telling you this story because the craziest thing happened is I go, oh, I should, I don't want to call my wife. I don't want her worried that I got hurt. I'm fine. It's just a little scrape-ish. And I'm able to put my bike back together. So I ride home and I say, hey, I fell. And she goes, the next day I said, I'm going to go for a bike ride. She goes, what do you mean? Don't you hurt? I said, no, I don't hurt at all. And she said, well, and I said, I don't think you understand. The weirdest things happen though. This makes me want to ride even more. And it triggered something in there, would that be the same kind of molecules going on or what? What would that, why would that be?
Because how do you feel after you finish a ride?
Oh,
Besides crashing. How do you feel normal?
I still felt great coming home after the ride.
Your system was producing that high.
Yeah.
For you. It's a natural high.
Yeah.
So your mind wants to go back to that again.
But it was higher, that day. So I don't want to do that on a regular basis just so I get it higher, but it hurt too much. But all right. Yeah. Well, enough about that. So you're in Orlando or close, or right outside.
Just right at the airport out of Orlando. Yeah. It's called Lake Nona, but it's
Lake
Orlando.
Nona. So if people want to get a hold of you, they can find you where? How do they work with you? What does that look like? How do we tell people where you are?
If you go to our website, it's the inspiredperformanceinstitute.com. All that information is on there. You can book a call with somebody if you want to talk more about it, or you can book right online. We have our online version of this, so it's 4 hours, just watching videos of me taking you through the same program you would if you came to see me. We've got a lot of success with that. People are really enjoying that. And so either way, I'm on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all of those things. So there's lots of ways to reach me.
Yeah. No, it's great. And we'll put it all in the show notes. We'll make sure everybody has access to it so that, they don't have to go and drive down the road and try and write this down and remember it too. So, but
and
yeah, the inspired, pardon?
And hit a pothole.
Yeah.
And then look at their phone.
That's right. Yeah. So the Inspired Performance Institute and Don Wood, they can find you, and I highly recommend it. We're going to be visiting you hopefully here soon and go through the entire protocol ourselves so that we can learn even more. But the stories we've heard, the work you do, both for just improving everybody's daily life to helping the veterans and the first responders is so amazing and honorable. We really appreciate that, and look forward to seeing you and talking to you soon.
I appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity, Graham.